same. Since nobody's working, it's kind of throwing me off a little bit. But this morning I thought we would do a non-yeast bread. So let me show you what it looks like, because I made one a little bit earlier. So I'll show you. This is what it looks like. It takes about an hour to bake from start to finish. So it's a perfect thing if you don't have any bread in the house and you need some bread for sandwiches or for dinner or for whatever. So first we're going to start out with a 1.5 cups of flour. And then we are going to need a 1/2 tablespoon or 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And 1/2 teaspoon of, I'm just going to guesstimate here, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And let's see our recipe here. We need 1/3 cup of sugar, and you know that I don't use sugar, so I'm going to use a little allulose. Let's get our 1/3 cup measure. I thought I had it out here, but I do not. Now you could leave this out altogether, but it does give it a nice little bit of sweetness. And the thing about allulose is it's not as sweet as sugar, so you're just going to hit the hint of sugar. Now, if you don't like any of that, like I said, you could just leave it out and it's perfectly fine. All right, we need a little bit of salt. And by a little bit, I mean just a pinch. That is Celtic sea salt, in case you're wondering. I use that or I use kosher salt. Either one works great. And then we're going to need 1 egg. And we're going to need some melted butter. So we need 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Let's go ahead and whisk this up first. We're just going to whisk it up, make a little well in the center. So we need our 2 tablespoons of melted butter, which I melted already and cooled. You don't want it too hot because you don't want it to end up gloppy. That's a technical term, gloppy. And then we're going to have that 1 egg in there. And then we're going to need 1 cup of buttermilk. Now don't fear, if you don't have buttermilk, you can use whole milk and add some lemon juice or vinegar to that. I usually just add about 1 tablespoon, and you'll see it gets nice and thick, just like buttermilk does. And then we're going to add that right into the center. Not many people keep buttermilk in their pantry or in their refrigerator anymore, because it's just not quite as popular as it used to be. But my mother-in-law used to love buttermilk. Okay, whoops, I've noticed that you cannot see the bowl here. Hang on 1 second, let me bring that down. There we go. Okay, so in here we have our 1.5 cups of flour. We have our 1 teaspoon and a half of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. We have a pinch of salt, 1/3 cup of sugar or allulose, 1 egg, and we have our 2 tablespoons of melted butter and our 1 cup of buttermilk. Okay, now we're going to just mix it up. And I love these dough mixers because they really do a good job, a better job than like a wooden spoon, and nothing really sticks to them as much, so it's kind of nice. Even though I'm spilling flour on the counter, it's nice to have something to work with like that. But then you know how I am. I always switch to my nice clean hands. And you can use a glove if you want to. But years of working in the industry of baking, I really am used to not using a glove. Okay. So we're just going to come in here and just form a rough ball. That's all we're looking for. Now at this point, you can add anything that you like. If you like currants or raisins or seeds of any sort, you can add them now. Sometimes it's nice to add some sesame seeds just for some extra flavor. We're going to get our pan with our parchment paper on here, and we're just going to form a rough ball. So it doesn't have to be beautiful because it will expand on its own. It has a lot of leavening, so it's going to expand. And you don't need to slash it, but if you want to, you obviously can. I just like that rough sort of texture on it, so that's what I'm going to do. And then from here, it just pops into the oven at 375 until it's done. And done means 210 degrees Fahrenheit in the center. So you use an instant read thermometer, and you'll know when your bread is done because you probe it and you can feel it. Now, there's other ways to do it if you don't have an instant read thermometer. Good morning, good morning. You can just tap the bottom and listen for it to be hollow, or you can go just by time. About 40 minutes is about the right time. I'm going to rinse my hands for 1 second. I'll be back. I'll show you the bottom of the other bread. Okay, so this bread is going in the oven. Oops, and I'll show you what the finished product looks like again, in case you missed the beginning. So pop that right in here. And then this is what the bread looks like when it's done. So you've got this nice little loaf right here. You can see the bottom is nice and brown. That's what we're looking for. And if you tap it, it should sound hollow. So it's really, really nice. So let's go ahead and slice it up. It's a little bit warm, and you really should wait until it's not very warm to slice it up. We're gonna do it anyway, because I'm a rebel like that. All right, so let's get us a nice sharp knife here, and we'll see if we can do it without crumbling it too much. Because as I say, you really should have it completely cool before you cut it. But, you know, here we go. See, you can see the steam coming out of it. But the thing is, it makes really great sandwiches. It makes nice toast, and it's a perfect way if you don't want to wait for it. So you know that my yeasted breads typically take 2 days. This one is done in about 1 hour and 15 minutes from start to finish, or an hour, depending on how quick you are. And this way you can make sure that you always have something on hand, and you don't need to buy that bread-like stuff that's in the store. Because you know, that's what's clogging up our guts. That all those dough conditioners and all those preservatives in there really make it so that we cannot process the bread, the food, whatever it is. I call them food-like products. They look like food, but they're not really food. They're just a shitstorm. Excuse the expression, but that's what it is. I mean, it's like a chemical concoction, and we're trying to put that in our body, and our body doesn't recognize it, so it cannot process that. And so take a few minutes, make it yourself. And actually, if you involve your kids, it becomes a wonderful process. I love to have my grandson come and help me, and he loves it too. He's great at stirring everything in. He likes to dump everything in. I'll measure it and he dumps it in. But then you know where your food comes from, and that's so important for kids to understand that, you know, you don't need to go to the store every time you need something. When my kids were little, I had a babysitter come, and I went out for the day, and I came home and asked how everything was, and she said, I need to ask you something. I couldn't find any bread to make sandwiches with for the kids. And she said, so your kids told me to bake the bread. But she had no idea how to do it, and she thought that was really odd. But that was the normal. That was what my kids were used to. If we run out of bread, we make more bread. And they knew that it wasn't instantaneous, and they knew that, you know, we took some time to put it together, but they knew how to do it. And so she just thought that was so interesting, or actually she was kind of shocked. She didn't know what to say. So, you know, the more that you can introduce kids to these foods and to really baking and everything from scratch, the better off we are. And that's always my message. It doesn't take much more time to do it. By the time I live out in the country, so I live maybe 12 to 15 miles from the nearest store. By the time I got in my car and went to go get the bread, I could actually have it done. So I want to, and let's say that you don't have all that time, right? Make little sandwich buns. They take about 15 minutes to bake, and then you're done. So I hope that I have inspired you to give it a shot, and you can email me. You can ask any questions you want. I promise I'll answer you. And I will drop the recipe underneath in the comment section so that you have it. And I'd love to see your finished product, so you can send me pictures. And I love when people do that. I love when people let me know that they've tried it. So do it. All right, my friends. This week on Monday, coming up soon, starts the Sugar and Shimmy Challenge. It is a no sugar challenge, so that I am teaching the no sugar part, the nutrition part, and all the recipes that go with it for 14 days. And then my good friend Vicki Poole is doing all the mindset work. She's a hypnotist. She's fabulous, and she's a master at mindset. And then we have a ballet dancer coming in to teach us some shimmy moves so that we can shimmy our way through some good health. So it's all about hydration, fueling your body, and movement. So I will also drop the link to that in case you feel inspired to do that with us. And as always, I pray for each and every one of you, and I wish you all a blessed day. I will see you again Monday. Take care.